Recently I turned 57, and one of the things I look back upon in my youth is how we were raised as a Gen Xer and all the life lessons that we've learned growing up. And some of the things back in the 80s, that we were taught, it really helped my life out, and I'm sure it's helped a lot of Gen Xers as well in their adult life. And I want to discuss, how those lessons from our, childhood, the 80s, really shaped us and really helped benefit us to survive in today's modern world. And one of the skills that I've learned as a Gen Xer was to be independent and also very resilient and also very resourceful, right? For instance, there wasn't YouTube. We didn't have YouTube to rely on to teach us how to do things. Many of the things that I learned came from just learning by trial and error through, maybe friends and family who were very resourceful. I remember I had a friend whose father made all their furniture for them, their beds, their desks, everything. So it's things like this that I really remember the most, and looking back at it now, it was just such a valuable experience. And I remember when I was a kid, just to share a story, I spoke to my wife the other day about this, and I don't know if you remember those cars called Pine Derby cars. The ones that you get in Boy Scouts where it comes in a little bag and it's like a piece of wood. You have to sand it down, paint it, and then put the wheels on and so forth. Well, I was in Boy Scouts at the time, and we had a Pine Derby race. And of course, my father was not around. He was always working, and he wasn't very much a very good handyman either. So I really didn't know how to put together a car very well. I mean, I started reading the instructions, and I didn't have like a wood sander or anything like that. So I just used a steak knife to shape my car, and I didn't have any paint, proper paint. I didn't know what to use, so I used those. I don't remember those watercolors back in the day where you had these little trays of that you put water in, and you would do a painting with it. Well, I used that to paint my car. And of course, when the day came to hold the derby races, I brought my car in, and I saw all these other kids' cars, and they were all painted nicely with the numbers on it, were shining. They just look almost like professionally done pine derby cars. And here I was with my watercolor car, which was green, and you could see the wood through it. And I remember we were having the races, and I was just watching all the cars race down this ramp. And of course, they called my name, and I put my car on there proudly. And I guess some of the kids were kind of snickering and laughing because my car looked, to be quite honest, quite ghetto, right? And I guess as soon as they released the cars to go, the cars started going down the ramp, and I think halfway through, my wheels fell off my car and started rolling into the audience. And of course, all the kids were laughing and making fun of me. I don't remember feeling bad at the time. I actually kind of laughed, but you know what? From that experience, for maybe a lot of kids would have felt embarrassed about it. I just, I look back at it now and it's just like, what? Hey, at least I finished, right? And I did by myself because all the other kids there had their fathers that probably helped them out, and good for them. But I didn't have that luxury. And, the main thing is I learned that, it doesn't really matter if I lost that day. I just have to remember that you can lose, but you can never be defeated. And that's one of the first things I learned at that age was to not give up, if you fail the first time, then consider it a learning experience and come back stronger. So that was a great lesson I learned that day. And I think the next thing that we have to learn as Gen Xers is to be independent. We walk to school in freezing temperatures if you're up in a northern climate. And parents gave us a schedule, and we just kind of followed it, and they trusted that we would follow the schedule. So it made us, gave us the ability to make decisions better. It also allowed us to trust ourselves as well. The other thing that Gen Xers were very, very good at is they're expected to entertain themselves. And I remember we grew up with very limited channels. We didn't have a lot of channels growing up, so it wasn't like we could just watch anything we wanted, not like today. And I never remember playing hide and go seek with the rest of the neighborhood kids, the endless hockey games that we played, the pickup football games, and even bike riding. We'd set up a ramp, a wooden ramp, and we have our friends that volunteered to lie down in front of the ramp and sacrifice the bodies as we took turns jumping over them, seeing if we could clear them. Luckily for me, but the friend that was the last one didn't get clipped. But it was things like that was I thought was really cool. And you never dare to say that you're bored to your parents, because I know for myself, I was working as a young kid, but I never said I was bored to my parents, because the moment I said I was bored, they would say, okay, well, you know what, we'll give you something to do. So they'll send us out to do chores and housework and so forth. So it was a time that allowed us to develop our creativity and entertain ourselves and really use our imagination, right? Which comes in handy as we got older. We also learned social skills, in a really hard way, because people had to learn how to deal with their differences. And as Mike Tyson said, I think he said it quite nicely. He said that a lot of people that talk nonsense on the social media now, they would never do that back in the 80s. I mean, unless you want to get punched in the face the next day. So, it was those things. If you had a conflict with someone, especially the guys, it would just be, take it out to the back of the school one-on-one, and they'll duke it out, and that'll be the end of it, and they move on with life. That's how we dealt with it back in the day. And it forced us to have really awkward conversations, get comfortable having awkward conversations. You had to ask a girl out on a date face to face, and you would learn to get rejected. And it doesn't feel good, but you know what? At least it helped you deal with it, because that's a fact of life. You're gonna have ups and downs. Not everything's gonna go your way or the way you want it, and you really had to learn how to deal with these disappointments in your life. And we also had the luxury of having the privacy to fail, because now the kids now, if you screw up or fail at something, it's broadcasted to around the world. It's not only just restricted to your social circle, your community, and I think it's important to allow kids to make mistakes, because that's how you're going to learn and so forth. But now, kids, if they make a mistake and it's a really bad one, it stays with you for the rest of your life, because an employer later on can look it up, and that could be a black mark against you. So it was a great opportunity to allow us to fail, but to fail forward, right, and to learn from it and grow. The other thing that was great about that time and the lessons I learned was, we weren't reachable. We weren't always accessible, because we didn't have cell phones with us. So when we left the house in the morning and told our parents goodbye, they just said, well, who are you going with? And come home at lunchtime, and then we'd come home for lunch, and then we'd be gone till dinner time. And then after dinner, if we left the house, which we usually did, because we want to go out and play with our friends, they would just say, go, when the street lights come on, and come back home. And that was it. And we didn't have to call. Maybe we'd call home to our parents just to let them know that we're okay. but most of the time we were just left to our own. And also, for myself, I had to take care of my brothers and sisters, so I was responsible for their safety and looking over them. And that was probably one of the times where I had to learn to be responsible for others as well, not only myself. And lastly, we were taught the value of hard work. And at a very early age, we were taught this. And many of us were expected to get a job when we were, young. So 12 years old, teenagers was when we were working part-time, either at a restaurant or some kind of job. But sitting around the house was not tolerated. And I remember some of the kids, at that time, I think I was getting $3.85, right? In addition to working my father's place, I got a part-time job at a local KFC, which was in a rough part of town. So I got to deal with all types of people, a lot of difficult people, and a lot of interesting situations. Bikers driving through the drive-through late at night, and maybe we were out a chicken and they would smash the window, right? And then we had to call the cops and so forth. So things like that, you really got to see things from another perspective. And I think that's it's important, because I had two fathers come up to me recently, and they don't know what to do with their kids. Their kids are, one's 16, the other one is 17. They don't want to go to school. They don't like school. And so they said, well, if you don't like school, then you're going to have to go to work. And they said, well, no, we don't want to go to work either, right? And they don't know what to do with them, because the one father thinks that it's his fault because he wasn't tough enough on his son, but the wife doesn't want to push the issue, right? And so their kids are kind of floundering. The other one said, well, okay, well, I don't want to go to school. And then they said, well, you have to go to work. And they said, well, I don't want to go to work either, and you can't make me. So he's stuck. I mean, what do you do with a kid that doesn't want to do that? It's a very difficult situation. And I told him, you know what, I really feel for you, because back in my day, that would not fly. I mean, if I didn't go to school, my parents says, okay, well, you're going to go out to work. If you don't want to go to work, well, then you know what? Then you're out on your own, right? And if you stayed in the house and you didn't want to go to school and you work, well, then you have to pay rent. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I think you're doing a service to prepare your kids for the real life. And I think our generation really did a good job. My parents and our parents' generation really did a good job in giving kids that heart and resilience, right, to fight. Because and I think that the movies at the time characterized those things, like Karate Kid, Rocky, even a comedy like Can't Buy Me Love. It's all about the underdog coming back, and what you can achieve if you put your mind and heart to it. And I love that, about that time period. So for me, it's helped me pivot as an adult. Anytime I had problems, I never tried to look to someone else to help me. I always look to, what is a problem and what am I going to do about it? Instead of just sitting here and feeling sad and upset with the world, things I can't control. I put the onus on myself, on what I can do now to change my circumstances. So I'm curious to find out from all of you. Let me know what is the greatest skill that you gained from growing up in the 80s, and what are you grateful for today on what that skill has done for you, and how has it helped you as an adult? Feel free to comment below. I'd love to hear from all of you, and if you like my content, please feel free to subscribe, like, or share. And check out my next videos coming up, and I will see you next time. All right, take care for now. Bye.